In the quiet town of Eastbridge, where the houses all looked alike and people knew each other's dogs by name, the Harrow family stood out. Not because they were flashy, but because they were flawless. Or so it seemed. Dr. Matthew Harrow was the town's most respected physician. His wife, Evelyn, was the type of woman who hosted bake sales and quoted Bible verses without sounding self-righteous. Click the subscribe button now to join us on Crime Whisper. Turn on your notifications and leave a like. Their daughter Claire was a sharp-tongued lawyer in a navy blue suit who never missed a Sunday dinner. And then there was Liam, the quiet one, the strange one, the one who never quite fit. But on a rainy Thursday morning, that perfect image shattered like glass. At 6:42 a.m., a desperate 911 call came in from Claire Harrow. "My father's dead," she said, breathless. "There's blood everywhere." When first responders arrived, the house was unsettlingly still. Dr. Matthew Harrow lay face down on the kitchen floor, a single, violent blow to the back of the head. The scene was too neat, too deliberate. There was no forced entry, nothing stolen. Just one man dead in a house that felt like it could have been holding its breath for years. Evelyn Harrow was found upstairs, sitting in a rocking chair, staring at the wall. Her pale blue robe was still perfectly tied. She hadn't moved, she wouldn't speak, just rocked. Detective Naomi Blake was assigned to the case. A seasoned investigator in her early 40s, Blake had seen plenty of domestic homicides, but something about this one felt wrong. It wasn't just the silence of the crime scene. It was the energy, like the house itself was hiding something. The investigation started where it always does, with the family. Claire Harrow claimed she'd come by early that morning to talk to her mother. She found her father dead and her mother silent. That was all. No fight, no shouting, no history of violence. Except there was. The deeper the detectives dug, the more cracks they found beneath the Harrows' polished surface. In the basement, rookie officer Kelechi Maduka, KC to his colleagues, found a hidden study behind a false wall. It was small, windowless, clinical, lined with journals, hundreds of them, handwritten, obsessively detailed, all by Dr. Harrow. The journals started off as reflections on medicine and family, but they slowly twisted into something darker, more paranoid. He wrote about Evelyn like she was an imposter, about Claire like she was a failed investment, and Liam, he called Liam the virus. One entry, dated just days before his death, read, "I've lost control. The masks are falling. One of them will end me." At first, the journals painted the picture of a man unraveling. But then, they started to feel more like documentation, as if Matthew wasn't the victim, but the predator. Blake turned her focus back to Evelyn, the widow. She wasn't crying, she wasn't shaking, she wasn't much of anything. But when Detective Blake asked if her husband had ever hurt her, Evelyn flinched. "He never hit me," she said softly. "He didn't have to." She described decades of subtle, constant psychological warfare. Matthew controlled what she wore, who she spoke to, what books she read. He had her passwords, her schedules, even her prescriptions. And every time she tried to speak up, he reminded her of her sister Anne, who had lived with them briefly years ago and then disappeared. Evelyn had always said Anne left to reconcile with her husband, but there had never been a phone call, no email, not a single postcard. Anne had vanished. Then Father Joseph Mark, the family's longtime pastor, spoke up. He told detectives that on the night Anne disappeared, Matthew called him in the middle of the night, said Evelyn was distraught and needed prayer, said Anne had packed up and left. But when Father Mark arrived, Anne was already gone. Evelyn was pale, quiet. Matthew never explained what happened. That memory stayed with him for over 20 years. Detectives searched the Harrow backyard beneath the rose garden that Evelyn had tended to for decades. With ground-penetrating radar, they found human remains. Female, wrapped in tarp, hidden deep in the soil. It was Anne. Now the case had shifted from a domestic murder to something much darker. A family built on silence, fear, and one buried secret after another. And suddenly, every surviving member of the family became a suspect. Claire, the lawyer, had always seemed like the cold, calculated one. She didn't grieve publicly. She stuck to the facts, but phone records showed she'd called her father the night before his death, twice, and deleted the calls. Surveillance cameras caught her car parked just one street away at 1:17 a.m. When questioned, Claire admitted she had visited her father. He was changing his will, she said. cutting us all off. He said we were parasites, that he'd earned everything. What Claire didn't say, but detectives later discovered, was that she was being investigated for embezzling funds from a client. Matthew found out. He was planning to report her. Claire's motive? Crystal clear, but there was no physical evidence linking her to the murder. Then there was Liam. Liam Harrow had always been the family's shame, a college dropout with a mental health diagnosis and an obsession with true crime. His apartment was a mess of notebooks, podcast equipment, and coffee-stained newspapers. He told detectives he hadn't been in the house for weeks, but Casey found one of Liam's journals in the basement. It was newer than the others, and far more disturbing. In it, Liam had written about breaking the chain, cleansing the bloodline, and ending the rot. There were references to Anne, to a hidden grave, to justice. When Blake confronted him with the journal and the discovery of Anne's body, Liam didn't flinch. He just asked for a pen. He wrote a confession, strangely poetic, said he'd seen the tarp when he was a child, that he'd known what his father did to Anne, that he had watched Matthew destroy Evelyn piece by piece over decades, that he overheard Matthew say just days ago, Evelyn will be buried next to her sister soon. That's when he decided it had to end. He waited until everyone was asleep, walked into the kitchen and struck his father once from behind. "I didn't kill him," he wrote, "I freed us." The murder weapon, a heavy wrench, was later recovered from Liam's apartment, hidden behind a bookshelf. Liam was arrested, charged with manslaughter, and later diagnosed officially with a severe mental health disorder. His case sparked national conversation. Was he a murderer or a victim of a lifetime of abuse? The public was divided. Claire was never charged for her father's death, but was disbarred for her financial crimes. She disappeared from public life. Evelyn, after testifying in court, changed her name and quietly moved to another state. She was never seen in Eastbridge again. The Harrow home, once a symbol of order and success, was demolished. In its place, a small memorial garden was planted. The plaque reads, "May silence never bury the truth." Detective Naomi Blake took a sabbatical after the trial. She said the Harrow case was the hardest of her career. Not because of the murder, but because of how normal it all looked from the outside. They were dying in that house for years, she said. No one noticed. And Casey? The rookie who found the journals and the wrench? He was promoted to detective within the year. When asked what stuck with him most from the case, he said, "Everything looked normal, but that house, it felt like it was holding its breath." Bloodlines wasn't just about a murder. It was about control that looked like love, about perfection that hid violence, about a man who thought he could own the people around him, and a family that quietly fell apart under his rule. In the end, the truth came out, but it cost everything. What do you think about this video? Leave your comment and share.